Welcome to Have You Read Any Good Books? I'm Mavis Applewater, and this is Author Chat. Feel free to click like and subscribe. This week, I'll be chatting with the phenomenal Renee Bess. Renee is known for her novels and her postings on Women in Words. My favorite posting from Women in Words was in 2020 when she penned the piece, "Excuse Me While I Burn a Few Bridges." Her novels include Leave of Absence, The Butterfly Moments, The Rules. In 2017, she teamed up with the legendary Lee Lynch to create the award-winning anthology Our Happy Hours, LGBT Voices from the Gay Bars. In 2019, Renee received the Alice B. Readers Award for her body of work. And now, Renee. And welcome, Renee. So good to see
Thank
you.
you.
It's
How are
been
you, Mavis?
We're good. I'm good. Heather's good. Living the life in Las Vegas.
Okay.
How is it back east? Is it cold?
It's cold today. It's going to be even colder tomorrow. Think it's like 40, 41 degrees right now,
Wow, that's cold.
but it's nice and sunny, so that's great.
Uh, well, I what I love talking to you about is you have a similar passion to the written word that I do.
Okay.
I think it was like instilled at birth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you went on to become an educator, for which you taught high school, so you should get a medal for that. How is that when you have your own creative process going on and then you have young minds that you're mentoring or
Well, I didn't do much writing during my
uh,
teaching career because teaching is almost a 24/7 enterprise. If you're not physically at the school or in front of kids, you're thinking about it. Um, but I think that's just how I'm made. I
right.
would I would write a bit in the summers, and by the second week of September, I just had to shelve it and
Oh.
just, dive into what I was doing each day. But I think that was good for my career. I hope it was good for my kids that I was able to devote so much to them.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Hands on, and I'm not surprised. So I started out by asking authors to send me their resumes and I would get like a sentence. So
Yes.
I just started looking people up and I found your Wikipedia page. And of course, you have footnotes and it's very you.
Okay.
And there's just so much to cover. Now, I too was a fan of the Hardy Boys growing up reading, because I had brothers ahead of me.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think that inspiration just stays with you. Like you said, you were teaching. It didn't allow
Mhm.
you time to express yourself. And when you do get time to do that, I feel it's almost like a dam breaking sometimes.
I think that's exactly what happened. I started my first book a few years before I retired, but as I said previously, I would write during the summers. And I was concentrating at that time on writing short fiction, but I noticed I kept coming back to the same story,
Right.
and it was no longer short fiction. It was getting larger and longer. So that first book, I believe I was able to get or have published 2 years after I retired. And from then on, I was just like, I don't know, so mouthy. I had so many words to get out. When when you're dealing with kids, whether it's kindergarten through 12th grade, there are times when you need to be quiet and just listen to them, or at least stop yourself if you're getting ready to give an answer that won't be received very well. And so I think after doing that for 33 years, I had so much bottled up. I had so many words bottled up and stories that needed to come out. So just one after the other, I was able to, I guess my first three or four books just came out one after the other.
Wow.
And that was good. I've slowed down since then
Well,
because life gets in the way. Um, but I'm happy that I'm writing again right now.
awesome. So we have
Yeah.
something possibly to look forward to.
Yes, I hope so.
Uh,
I hope so. Yeah.
I've been a fan of your writing for a long time now.
Thank you, Mavis.
And happy hours.
Yes.
I'm going to go right there.
Hmm.
You worked with Lee Lynch,
Yes.
who is, as we know, a living legend.
Hmm.
And I like saying that to her because it makes her uncomfortable. Come on, Lee, let's get some ice cream. Let's go.
Better to be a living legend than a deceased one.
What? Right, right. Um, and I didn't realize it was what got you on the subject was the horrific events of the Pulse nightclub in Orlando.
Yes. Yes. Hmm.
I mean, I'm getting teary-eyed now thinking about those events.
Hmm.
And having been someone who was standing behind the bar in places like that,
Yeah.
and I knew that that was like our temple in many ways,
Yes.
our places to go where we could
Yes.
actually be together,
Hmm.
even back in the days where it was also illegal and they had the light downstairs, and you
Hmm.
better not be dancing with someone who was the same gender.
Exactly.
And and it sounds like you're making that up now, I guess, to the younger people today. It's like,
Hmm.
no, no,
Hmm.
that's what happened.
Hmm.
And in my generation, I remember having to go very quickly to whatever form of transportation was taking you home,
Yes.
or you might not make it home.
Yeah.
And so tell me about this anthology, award-winning anthology. I want to stress that. Uh,
Okay.
uh,
Well, I think the farther away in time that I got from the Pulse nightclub massacre, the the more important it seemed to me, the more I was affected by it. And you can place yourself, as you probably did, you can imagine yourself being there,
right. Hmm.
and perhaps not being able to come out alive. So I thought, well, if these thoughts are just stirring in me now, I wonder what other writers are thinking. I wonder if they've turned to words, written words, to express their feelings. And so I had this idea about an anthology that would be fiction, nonfiction, poetry, essays, and I thought this could be a huge project. I'd like somebody to work with me. So I wrote a tentative email to Lee,
Hmm.
whom I have idolized for years and years and
Yeah,
years. And she said she only had to think about it for one evening. And she wrote
Leslie.
back and said, "Yep, I'll join you." So we composed together, we sort of set up some ground rules for what we wanted. We composed a request for submissions and put that out and got quite a few. I think we got over 70 submissions
Wow.
of pieces. And to this day, what thrills me the most is the variety that we have in that book, not only of literary genre, but we have writers from different countries. We have writers who represent different ethnicities and races, language groups. The first question Lee and I asked each other was, will this be only for lesbian writers? And we both simultaneously we said no,
Oh,
um, because I don't like restriction that's based upon anything.
right.
And so I was not going to restrict people. And consequently, we have a couple of pieces in there written by people who identify as heterosexual, and that's fine.
Oh, yeah.
So it's probably the work that I'm most proud of in that it represented so many things that are important to me. Social issues, political issues, the fact that you could write no matter who you are, what you represent, who you represent, the international aspect of it, uh, interested me because I was a foreign language teacher, and and I was brought up in a very diverse community.
Okay.
Um, in some cases international, but at least very diverse racially and ethnically. And so that's my comfort zone.
Yeah. Wow. I remember when it first came out, and Patty Schramm was next to me, and,
Hmm.
and, and it sold out so fast. It's like,
Yes.
oh,
Yeah.
Jesus. So Flashpoint Productions,
Yes.
publications.
Hmm.
So it's very, and not the only piece you have with them, though.
No.
No.
And just one more thing about our happy hours. Neither Lee nor I has accepted a single penny in royalties from that book. Half of the royalties go to an organization in Philadelphia called the Attic, and the other half goes to an organization in New York City. Both organizations exist to serve LGBTQ plus youth who are
So
thrown out of their families, thrown out of their houses, need support. And so that's the icing on the cake for us that we've been able to help kids who are experiencing problems.
that is awesome. That is just amazing. And I'm not surprised that the two of you would do that.
Yeah.
I'll make sure I put in a links to those
Oh, great,
organizations.
great.
It's an awesome book. It's just given the times and everything that's going on, being
Hmm.
able to tell our stories, and as you said, from around the world,
Hmm.
is just what an amazing gift that the two of you put together and gave us.
Thank you.
I'm looking, someone just walked in the room. I think she just wanted to see you. Uh,
Okay. Hello. Hey there. How are you?
she asked, "How are you?" I got the headphones on so I don't get
Okay.
feedback. Yeah.
All righty. Good. Okay.
Oh.
I got my Renee.
And I married her. It
Good move.
was smartest thing I ever did. I have like pages for you, just stuff I
Wow.
could. Yeah. Well, I always like to do my research.
Good. That's
Yeah,
good.
I knew you would appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's so many books, and obviously, I have been reading your books for a while. I remember though, in my 20s, which was 100 years ago, my friends and I, we would exchange lesbian books, mostly
Hmm.
romance,
Hmm.
because that was our version of a book club. I read a good book. Here you go.
Right.
I and it was something I hadn't thought about.
Uh-huh.
And one of my friends gave me "Say Jesus" and "Come to Me."
Uh-huh.
It's a good book, but it hadn't put together. It's like, well, why aren't I seeing other uh, LGBT books where the lead characters are black
Hmm.
or the author is black? And
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, I saw a lot of Catherine V. Forrest, wonderful author, and a lot of
Hmm.
Karen and everyone else, but it was never prominently displayed. And I read recently, this happened to you a few years ago, that a publisher actually said to you that nobody's interested in the
Hmm.
story of a black girl coming out.
Hmm.
I beg to differ, but that's me.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
No, that came as a rude awakening. It also turned out to be quite a motivator for me
ah,
because, of course, I didn't believe it. I
oh,
thought there must be a readership out there of people who are interested in this, and so um, I took my second manuscript to Kathy Briarrose, who was running Regal Crest, and
oh,
now, of
Regal.
course, it's Flashpoint production publications, and Kathy's not a part of it any longer. But I had to give them kudos for knowing that, but that the book would not be what can I say? It would not earn that much money because of a low readership. But the low readership was because the publishers only had access to mostly white readers. They didn't have access, nor did they look for
Right.
access to Black readers. So it's been a struggle, no matter what genre.
Right.
I think it's certainly gotten better than it was years and years ago, but still, it's difficult. It's difficult to make a living
Right. Well,
being a writer.
being a writer in general. It's just,
Yeah, yeah.
and for those of you who like base this on watching episodes of Castle, that's not true. There are no advances.
No, no,
You just do it because you love to do it.
exactly.
And I'm glad that you're out there doing it because when I read that first book, it's like, well, how ignorant am I that I didn't like that? But there has to be books out there. And the reaction sometimes of other people who are like, well, but it's a Black book. It's like, it's a book.
Mhm,
It's a good book, you know.
mhm,
And that's my criteria. Is it a good book?
mhm,
And I would like to read that then. Like you said, some of the input for happy hours were people who identify as heterosexual.
mhm,
Is it a
mhm.
good story? And that's to me it, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to stop like saying, okay, this is who is and isn't qualified and or if someone self-identifies in a way you're not comfortable. Get over yourself, right?
Yep.
Oh, so I had a quote of yours. See, I did do homework. It's been a long time since I've done homework that didn't relate to something I was making up. Ah, last page. There we go. You see, you know, literally got a sentence from one author.
Okay.
I write stuff. That's it. It's born. I write stuff. It is important for us to tell our own stories because we need to affirm our right to exist in the world and in the body of lesbian and gay literature. Many times we're not only invisible to the non-Black gay and lesbian community, we're invisible to each other. And I think that really touched on what you were saying.
Mhm, mhm,
I mean, growing up, if I saw anything on TV or read anything that just even said gay, it was
mhm.
like I had to cling to it, whether it was good or bad or
Sure.
indifferent.
Uh-huh.
And you're coming from a point where it's like, not only do we have lesbian stories to tell or stories to tell,
Mhm,
but as I'm a Black woman here, but to have it be pushed aside and to be told, well, nobody wants to read that.
mhm.
Have you asked everyone? Have you put it out there?
Right, right.
I mean, I had this amazing professor in college who that's just how I found Audre Lorde.
Okay.
And well, we also read Toothpick House and Ruby Fruit Jungle.
Mhm.
So obviously, very lesbian professor,
Yes.
and was very proud of it. That to me alone was inspirational.
That's wonderful.
A very get over it attitude. Yeah, get over it.
Mhm, mhm,
But introducing to me, it all comes back to the introducing new books and everything, and your anthologies and your works of fiction.
mhm,
Now, you were inspired when you were teaching and you had to shelve it, and then you had the chance to write. So your first few books were was it uh no see now I gotta go to the list.
The first book was Leave of Absence,
Okay.
and I didn't have a publisher for that, but Borders Books was still in existence, and they had a self-publishing branch.
Oh,
So I self-published with them. Um, and then I was able to get a publisher for my second book, Breaking J.
yeah, yes, I love that book.
Yeah, thank you. And then I've been with the same publisher ever since.
Yeah, they changed slightly, but
Yes, yeah, exactly.
they're now Flashpoint.
Right. Yes.
Always a good company. Brenda Adcock was with them for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The late Brenda.
Yes. Yes. I counted her among my friends and supporters. She was a very real person,
She really was. I love.
and she volunteered to do two videos for me, one for Breaking J, and I think the other one for Rebuilding Sasha.
Right.
And she wouldn't take any money for it. She created them, put them on YouTube, and I just thought, what a wonderful spirit. You know, there she is among a group of women that I've met through GCLS, Golden Crown Literary Society, who've just become family to me.
She was truly an amazing person. I was
Mhm.
talking to her wife not all that long ago,
Mhm.
and we tell stories about Brenda. One was Brenda, Cheryl, and I were in Austin together. We were sharing
Mhm.
a room for a book event, and
Uh-huh.
we were all smokers then.
Okay.
Well, in hindsight, Brenda really should have quit. And we were looking for a place to buy cigarettes, and we ended up at a strip bar. So that's us. And that's also a very Brenda thing.
All right.
Oh, look where we are. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but did they have any cigarettes?
uh,
But yeah, and she did. She was ahead on the whole YouTube thing. She did a couple for myself and many other people, and tried to teach people how to do it.
mhm.
Always the educator herself.
Yes. Yes.
And she was funny, but she told me a story though that at one point a young man, because she was out of Texas, which is such a fun place. I've had some good times there, but it's who I've hung out with. Uh,
Exactly.
a student, a gay male student, wore a pink shirt,
Mhm.
and the next thing happened is no one could wear pink. They didn't want to make it look like they were. That's like really that's I wouldn't fly in Boston.
Yeah.
So they just banned pink shirts
Okay.
rather than say, "Oh, you can't be out."
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
this was only like what 10, 15 years ago, 20 years, yeah.
Yeah.
And looking back on some of the progress in LGBTQA, I'm losing track of the alphabet on that, but the rainbow umbrella,
Yes. Yeah.
that what we came from, like you said, you
Mhm.
self-published your first book. I didn't even
Mhm.
realize that
Mhm.
when there were bookstores.
Yes.
Yes, they were yes, little Jimmy, they were bookstores once upon a
Exactly.
time.
Mhm.
Um, to this age where you could order them right online. This is that why I print out now because there's
Right.
just nowhere place to put any more books in my house. That we've gone to the digital age and instantly, and groups like GCLS
Mhm.
have come about, and we can meet people of like minds who
Yes.
enjoy not only writing or but reading as well. And
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
always said that didn't we start out as readers first?
Yes.
I'd like to think we did. But how do you view this new change? Do you think it's good for us? It's certainly reached across the globe now.
Specifically, which new change? Because I feel like we're in a constantly in a whirlwind
Right.
of change.
It
So certainly being able to access books within a matter of minutes or
yeah,
less
or less.
is pretty wonderful. I've read a couple articles recently about a resurgence of brick and mortar bookstores,
Oh, that'd be
and
great.
yes, so that looks good. And women-owned bookstores looks even better. Uh, I'm not aware of, at least in the general Philadelphia area, I'm not aware of any LGBTQ owned bookstores, but there certainly are women owned and black owned bookstores.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What I don't know, is Charis in Atlanta still around? That was like the last one I knew.
Yes, in fact, I got an email from them this morning. They
Nice.
have a tremendous amount of activities going on.
I had a
So
great did my
yeah,
first signing there. It's like,
I think I did my second, and I was there with Brenda.
oh,
Brenda and a couple others. We somebody drove us to the store. We were in Atlanta for one of the GCLS cons
mhm,
and had an invitation to go there. So yeah,
nice.
that's a marvelous source of literature.
Oh, well, just being in the car with Brenda is a marvelous source of stuff.
Exactly.
And if you could get with her and her wife driving, it's hysterical.
I can only imagine.
Well, you're married, you know how it goes sometimes. It's like, no.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
Oh.
sit back as one of those situations where I no longer drive, and the world seems happier about that. Where I sometimes wonder, is this how I sound to Heather? No, it's the other right.
Uh,
Oh, sorry, mouth. Um, well, that's exciting for me to hear that there's
mhm.
actually bookstores coming back. I miss being able to go in and browse
Yes.
and smell it, and I discovered so many genres and different books just by being able to do that.
Hmm.
I mean, when you're scrolling through, you only catch so much.
Right.
And that's, I think, the downside of the innovations. I mean, now we have our audiobooks, and
Mhm.
that's a lot of fun. All right, so you are working on something now.
I
You give
am.
us any hints? And
Yeah, again, this is something that started as a short story. And one of the characters in particular, I just couldn't shoo her out of my head.
right,
And so the short story I wrote 2 or 3 years ago, but the book is my first foray into historical fiction.
awesome.
And it's set in 1937 and 38 so far, mostly in Paris.
Oh, nice time. Yeah,
It's about a Black young woman who is from Philadelphia, and she has an aunt who used to live with her and her parents. But the aunt decided at some point to relocate to France, where life would be easier for her. The aunt is a lesbian and always suspected that her niece could be gay as well, but they didn't really come out to each other. But the niece, this young woman from Philly, she's graduated from university. She decides to visit her aunt. So she gets a 3 month visitor visa to go to France. And that is extended because she's having such a good time there. She's feeling so comfortable there, and she aspires to be a journalist. And before she left, she applied to as many um, Black-owned newspapers as she could in the States and didn't get a nibble from any. Um, but she finally does get a nibble from a Chicago newspaper, and she's invited to write a column every week or every 2 weeks about life for Negroes in France, specifically in Paris in that era. And she does, she loves the column, she loves the job, but she begins to take note of her surroundings and things that are going on, and her column becomes less a travelogue and more a, hey, are you paying any attention to what's happening in Germany right now? And so she becomes much more political, and I'll leave it from there. There is some romance in it.
always
There
nice.
are, I mentioned some people who really were in France at that time, like Josephine Baker, for
Baker.
example. Um, but
It was an exciting time in Paris at that time.
Yeah, well, the 20s were very exciting. They in France they called it les années folles, or the crazy years. And then came the Depression, which hit the United States more than it hit France
Right.
in terms of unemployment versus employment. But yeah, the 30s continued to be good. And the 50s, late 50s, or late 40s into the 50s was good as well. So we had the Harlem Renaissance on this side of the ocean, but there was a whole Renaissance going on in Paris with Black artists and musicians and writers. So,
I'm already sucked in. When you said, "Oh, she couldn't know nibbles from the newspaper," I'm like, "Oh." Well, you have to let us know when that's coming out.
thank you. Thank you.
I'm like, I gotta get that now. Oh, well, we are running a little low on time because
Okay.
so great seeing you and talking to you again.
It's great seeing and talking with you.
Yeah, and I am going to put the links up. Flashpoint. I recommend all of your books, but Happy Hours.
Great.
It's just an amazing anthology and amazing stories and
Thank you.
telling our stories, and
hmm
which this is what we need to do,
hmm
all of
Definitely.
us.
Yep.
And well, my notes fell on the floor, but
It's okay.
you have said that many times. We need to tell our stories.
Yes.
Well, thank you for visiting with me. So
Thank you for the
great.
invitation.
You'll have to come back, and hopefully, when your next one is available, I'm going to put a
All
bunch of
right.
links. Look for Renee's books. You're going to love them. And great. Let me
I love
just
that. Thank you.